Hello and welcome to another episode of Roxy's Ride and Inspire Rawcast, where I combine mountain bike skills coaching, psychology, neuroscience, and my experience as a pro mountain bike coach, coaching all levels of riders from beginners to Olympic pro, both online and in real life, with an experience of over 13 years. I'm taking you on my evening walk today. I'm at the Costa Blanca in Spain. The sky is a beautiful red because the sun has just set, and I'm walking up some rocky paths with you, enjoying the mild climate. It's November here at the Costa Blanca. We still have about 20 degrees. I love Spain because it has such an amazing climate, and maybe you can hear the dogs barking. Maybe you can hear my feet on the rocky paths, but I just want to take you on my creativity walks because this is where I can think best, and I feel inspired to share every time I'm here in nature. And I just love the idea that thousands of people out there are coming on a walk with me, enjoying these beautiful views and learning from my expertise. Today I want to talk about a topic that I call the biggest progress jeopardizer. It's the number one reason why I see riders stagnate, i.e. hit a plateau when learning skills. And that is that they mistake advanced skills for basic skills. They think that skills are basic that really are not. And a few years ago, I actually published the Roxy Bike Skills algorithm, which is a pyramid about skills and an order in which you should be learning skills, because I was so, frustrated with so many coaches out there promoting skills that are clearly not basic skills for adult riders as basic skills. An example for this is the bunny hop. Many coaches out there say a bunny hop is a basic skill. Okay, it is a basic skill if you're a BMX rider, if you're a trials rider, or if you're a kid learning to jump a line in Whistler, then it's a basic skill. But for most of us adult riders, to be honest, it is not a basic skill. I've been working with adults to teach them skills for over 13 years now, and I haven't met a single adult who learned to bunny hop in a few hours or days. It all took them weeks to months, because it's a complex move, and learning skills as an adult just takes time, because we need to build up coordination, we need to build up strength, we need to build up all the little pieces that belong to a skill. And especially if it's a skill like the bunny hop, which has quite a lot of little parts to it, then it just takes time and a lot of practice. And thinking that the bunny hop is a basic move, to be honest, it frustrated me, because when I started riding, I struggled with the bunny hop a lot. And I learned it in a way that actually made me hit a plateau, which is why I've already published 2 videos about it that I'm going to share below this podcast. And it frustrated me because everyone kept telling me it's a basic move. And I was like, okay, well, if it is a basic move, and if I can't do it, does that make me less than a beginner? Am I even less worthy than a beginner if I can't do a basic move? And a lot of clients share this with me. They're like, okay, well, everyone says a manual is a basic move, bunny hop's a basic move, and endo is a basic move, and I can't do any of them. Well, but I can ride black trails, so why is it a basic move and why can't I do them, and can we just learn them? So the progress jeopardizer number 1, as I said, is mistaking advanced moves for basic moves and then practicing them. Why is that a progress jeopardizer? Let me share with you. If you are practicing advanced moves without refining your foundation first, what are you doing every time you're practicing this advanced move? Well, you're practicing your foundational errors in the moves that come way before the move you're actually practicing, right? And that's why I see riders, especially riders at like aged 40, 50, 60, who've been riding for a long time, hit a plateau and never really progress beyond a specific level because they keep ingraining their errors. And the more you practice them, the more automatized they become, the harder it will get to refine because you need to unlearn these skills. I want to give you an example for this, and it's a follow-along exercise, let's call it. And I want you to answer a question that I'm going to ask you, but I want you to do the opposite with your head than you are saying. So let's say I'm going to ask you a question and the answer is yes. Then I want you to shake your head no, although you're saying yes. And if the answer is no, then I want you to nod your head yes and say no. So I want you to do the opposite of what you're saying. Okay? Here's the question. Do you like eating bananas for breakfast? And let me guess, it was not as easy as you thought. Shaking your head no and saying yes cost you some hard thinking work, right? So it took you much longer than just saying yes and nodding your head, right? And that is an automatism at work. So you need to break through that automatic habit of yours, which is nodding your head and saying yes, or shaking your head no and saying no, and doing the same thing and saying the same thing. You need to break through that automatism and do something differently. And that takes conscious thought and thus takes time. And exactly this happens once you start learning skills and once you start breaking habits on the trails. You will start to ride slower. You will start to need a lot of conscious thinking capacity, which makes you distracted and thus doesn't enable you to ride the trails like you used to. And that's why I keep saying you need to regress to progress, and you need to ride slow to ride fast. So when I'm working with adults on their skills, then we always need to slow down to start building new automatisms because we need to break old habits. Breaking old habits takes time. You can imagine it like this. You have this highway in your brain. This highway is your automatism. So this is the thing, your habit that you've been always doing. You don't need to think about it. You just go down the highway. Your thoughts just flow through at a very high speed down the highway, and you don't need to consciously think about what you're doing. Like when you're walking, you're putting one foot in front of the other, like I am now. I don't need to consciously think about it. And then when you learn something new, or you learn something in a new way, so a skill that you've been performing for a long time in a specific way, you now want to do it differently, then you can imagine that there's a tiny little hiking path that you've built next to your highway. It's barely visible and it's still full of grass, and you can hardly walk on it. So your brain is always going to be like, why the hell should I take that hiking path if the highway is right there? So it always wants to go down the highway, and you need to consciously go down that hiking path to allow it to turn wider and wider, and to use your footsteps to kill the grass that is growing on that little hiking path, and to allow the grass to grow on your highway. And this takes time, and it takes conscious willpower, because you need to consciously take that little hiking path versus the highway. And that's why relearning will always take much longer than learning something right at the beginning. And that's why when I give a foundational skills clinic, so fundamental skills clinic, and I have a mixture of riders that have been riding for 20 years and riders that have just been riding for 2 months, then you'll see that the riders who've just been riding for 2 months advance much quicker and much more easily than those who've been riding for 20 years, because the riders who've been riding for 20 years need to break their habits. So they need to consciously take that little hiking path and ignore the highway, whereas the others, the newbies, they can just build a new highway because they don't have one. And that's why it's so important to do 2 things. That is, 1, when you're learning a sport new, so you're new to a sport, then I'm serious, book the best coach you can get, because at the beginning you're building that highway, so it will directly turn into a highway. It's much easier. You're like this dry sponge. You'll soak up everything and you'll progress so much faster. But unlearning those habits that you built in the beginning later on will take you much, much longer. And if you then book an inexperienced coach, although he's meaning well, but if he teaches you things that will limit your progress in the long run, then it's going to take you much longer to unlearn these later on. So that's advice number 1. If you're new to a sport, book the most experienced and probably most expensive and best coach you can get, because those first months are crucial for your long-term progress. Advice number 2 I want to give you today is, if you've been riding for 20, 30, or even more years, and you want to progress your skills, then you need to be ready to regress to progress. And you need to come with realistic expectations. So allow yourself the time. Don't expect to learn skills in 1, 2, 3 days. Expect to put in months of work, because that's how learning motor skills as an adult works. It just takes time and practice. You know, no one believes they can just go into the gym and train once or twice and have the huge biceps. But everyone seems to believe that with mountain biking, you can go take a clinic and you'll learn to jump in a day. But you know, jumping is all the way at the top of the skills pyramid I was talking about at the beginning. So it's an advanced move. It's not a basic move, or bunny hopping is not a basic move. So you need to allow yourself the time to build those movement habits to then be able to perform them automatically out on the trails. And that takes time. So give yourself time and go out with realistic expectations. So what are basic skills? Basic skills are body positioning, for example. It's such a crucial skill, and so little people practice it consciously. Braking. Braking is a skill that I could spend probably 4 weeks working with riders on. It's an amazing skill. And all these other skills you will find in my skills pyramid that I have linked below. So that's all from me today. Thank you for joining me. Sending you a lot of love from the Costa Blanca. Goodbye, I'm Roxy.